Hey everyone, this is Eric, Galloway Precision. We just did a slide video. It should be posted up on the website how-to section on our YouTube channel as well. So we're going to follow it up with the Sigma frame video. This is installing the Sigma sear and the trigger return spring that we offer for this particular pistol. The slide is the same for the SD and the Sigma, so it's a common video, but we're going to do individual videos for the frame of the Sigma and the SD. You'll need a few tools for this one as well, like you did for the other. Basically what we're going to be using is an 1/8 inch punch, a 1/16 inch punch, a brass drift, and a couple picks, a 270 and a 45. What you get from us is 3 or 4 springs rather, a striker, a blocker, and a trigger spring that are shared between the Sigma and the SD. The difference comes down to the sear spring, how the two trigger systems work there. I know there's a lot of videos out on the Sigma. They show you removing one spring and removing the oddball little spring at the bottom. I'm going to show you to remove the oddball one at the bottom. I think they call it the lawsuit spring. We're going to get it out of the system when we do the install. We're also going to swap the outer spring, the outer sear spring, with our spring. This is the critical part. If you install it correctly, everything's going to work nicely. You're going to have a really good trigger pull. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us and let us know, but this should be pretty straightforward. We'll start with what we're going to do is obviously the gun has to be field stripped. We're going to knock this pin out. So we're going to take an 1/8 inch punch. There's a good punch, lock it out. Pull the locking block out. And you're left with the internals. You can actually just go ahead and pull your slide lock out of the way as well. The trigger will come up and out. You'll see it actually come up and off this little hook on the back, the trigger fire control group. I'm going to take the rear section, the same thing, 1/8 inch punch. This one pretty well almost falls out on most of these guns. There's not a lot of pressure on them. So that pin is out. We're going to take the ejector and actually pull up. And you're going to wiggle it and it should pop right loose. It's now gutted. We'll go ahead and set it out of the way for right now. Take your ejector, if it's 49, doesn't matter, they both go in the same way. There's a little trough they sit in, a semicircle cut, makes the cross pinhole. Go ahead and set it aside. Now, you can see this one has that goofy little torsion spring on it. I think people call it the lawsuit spring or whatever. Anyway, we're going to pull it out of the system and leave it out. So we're going to take a 1/16 inch punch and just push this pin out. Alright, now there's a lot of pressure on this, so kind of keep it covered with your thumb, pull out, and this will slide right out the end here. Alright, I'm not going to reuse it, so just set it aside. Your pin fell out the bottom. Now, pay close attention here because you're going to see this pin, the way it sticks out and the orientation. Everything is going to come straight out the top of the fire control group, just like that. So this aside. Now I want you to take a good look for reference. You're going to see this actual sear is here on this setup, and you have an inner and an outer spring here. Basically what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of pull these apart, put some pressure on here. There's a lower pin, it's very small. You're going to push it out. Just like that. There we go. There's a lot of pressure on that. And you notice the pin, it has a one-way shoulder on it, so it only fits one way. You see it right there. Alright, now we're going to pull, that's your outer spring and your inner spring. Alright, now you also notice there's a little receiver here for the springs to sit in. We're not going to bother pulling the inner spring out. You see it's about 1 mile long. We can actually slip our spring over it, so we're not going to bother getting that particular part out. We're going to get our little bag of goodies here. We're going to slide the new spring over the old spring, just like that. Push these down. You'll feel it kind of click and it'll actually seat. Now we're going to take this one-way pin, just out right here. We're going to compress this down. Whoops, there it goes. I'm going to go ahead and just seat this, and then we'll push the springs into place. Alright. So I got the pins in, and I'm just going to work these back into spots here. This one's not going to cooperate good. There we go. Alright, so you can see just sort of push it back, you'll hear it click, and it'll actually seat back in that pocket. This side's all flush. See the sears back. Slide it back down into its home. Like that. We'll take our cross pin, push it back into place, squeeze it till it's flush. Alright? Now we're ready to put that back in your fire control group. There's a little notch it sits in. Oops, put our ejector back in, excuse me. Alright. So the ejector is in. And we're just going to drop this down inside. Take our pin, push it back in. That section is done. Now what we've got over here, you'll notice you've got a small end and a big end. There's a reason for this. The big end goes over the cross pin that goes here. So in order to get this out, you're just going to kind of twist it. It pops right out. Set that down. We're going to get our new spring out. You can put your felt in it if you want off the old one or not. It really doesn't matter. Take your open end. It's also kind of got a taper on it. If you've got access to a vise, it's nice to have it. It'll hold it. There we go. That's it. Working in there. Alright. So, spring's the same, and it will fall up and over. Oh, it'll fall off too. Should get it sort of manipulated in there. Wow, that's greasy. Always nice. Do this one more time. Alright, I'm going to take this and roll it, slide it over. And this is where things kind of get fun. We're going to take and hook this across the rear pin back there. Drop it down inside. Kind of push it over to the side. And you're also going to push your locking block down in. Now, there's a couple different ways to do this. Some people send a slave pin, etc. for that. And that's fine. You can use that as well. But if you look down the side there, you can get that hook pretty easy. What you're going to want to do is sort of get an idea of which way you want to do this to suit you. I like to go from this side. You've got a cross pin point to deal with, though. It's kind of aggravating. But you're going to push this in from this side and work your trigger till you get it lined up. Just like that. Take your small punch and you're just going to kind of snake that spring head up. Make sure it's seated. Okay, it's in there good. Now we're going to take our slide stop and just slide it in from the side. Give it a little push and you'll feel it kind of click in. You can always check from the side and make sure everything's moving good. Tap there. There we go. Okay, you may have to take your pick and just pop that just slightly. That's going to kind of get that spring back in the channel where it needs to be. You hear it clicking there, and it's all seated. So that's it. All the parts are installed. The sear that we're coming out with, of course, will replace the factory one. But you get the general disassembly there. And now the gun is back in piece. Much lighter, much crisper. Okay? Anyway, that's the install on the Sigma. We'll do the SD video next. We'll also do a little takedown video for the takedown plate. That's real quick and easy. All right, thanks.